The Earth is compared to a treasure chest that holds ancient secrets from time immemorial, waiting to be discovered. In this video, we will see some of the archaeological mysteries that have intrigued humanity throughout time. Number 1. The Falcon Sanctuary. The ancient Egyptians were such a mysterious people that we will probably never be able to unravel all their secrets. Its rituals and sites are an enigma to us, and that enigma deepened with the discovery of the so-called Falcon Sanctuary in October 2022. This unusual sanctuary, revealing hitherto unknown ancient rituals and practices, was discovered during planned archaeological excavations in Berenice. This city was once a prosperous Greco-Roman port filled with merchants and is also known as Berenice Troglodytica. Archaeological evidence suggests that the sanctuary was created sometime between the 4th and 5th centuries, during which the city was partially controlled by a nomadic eastern desert culture known as the Blemias. The harpoons and cube-shaped statues found in the sanctuary are specific offerings of the Blemias and their beliefs. The Falcon Sanctuary gets its name from the 15 falcons that were found buried inside it, all accompanied by their eggs, but curiously their heads were missing. To add more mystery, an inscription was found that read, "It is forbidden to boil a head." We can assume that this inscription refers to animal heads, because the alternative would be creepy. Number 2. Stone Mask. 9,000 years ago, the prehistoric occupants of the lands around Mount Hebron and the Judean mountains began to transition from a nomadic lifestyle to building settlements and cultivating the land. One of those settlements also made a stone mask, and archaeologists think the two could be connected. It is suspected that the mask was deliberately buried to denote ownership of the land on which a house was built, as burying objects to denote ownership was common at the time, although masks were not usually included. Masks of this type are very rare. This is one of only 15 in the world that can be proven to come from the Neolithic era. Although it has not been confirmed, experts believe that the mask could have been molded from the face of a deceased person. Ancestor worship was practiced in this region during Neolithic times, and death masks were part of those rituals. Despite the mask's weight, it is likely that it was designed to be worn in ceremonies, as it has small holes in the sides where a rope would have been passed to secure it to the wearer's face. Using it must have been somewhat uncomfortable. Number 3. Ming Dynasty Treasure. A battlefield is a good place to look for buried treasure, but the problem is that most major ancient battlefields have already been identified and excavated. However, this is not always the case. In 2017, a Ming-era battlefield, from approximately 370 years ago, was discovered in China. To date, the site has revealed more than 10,000 items. Experts are still studying the objects they have found, but one of the most exciting finds is a rare golden imperial seal. It is believed that it may have belonged to the heir apparent of one of the ancient emperors of China. The seal was found at a historical site in Xianzhou and dates from a turbulent period in Chinese history, when the Ming dynasty fell and the Qing dynasty rose. The seal is a 10 by 3 centimeters golden rectangle, decorated with a turtle on top, and is probably the only one of its kind ever created. It is even believed that it may have fallen into the hands of Zhang Xinzhong, the rebel leader known as the Yellow Tiger, who led the uprising against the Ming Empire. Number 4. Discovery of an ancient skull. You may have heard of the ancient medical practice of trepanation, which was a way to relieve pressure on the brain by drilling or cutting holes in the skull. In November 2022, archaeologists in Turkey's Van province were surprised to find a trepan skull. It wasn't so much the fact that the skull was trepan that surprised them, but rather that it was 3,200 years old. We know that this part of Anatolia was populated during the Neolithic eras and that the people who lived there were relatively advanced for their time, but it was never previously suspected that they were capable of carrying out these types of interventions. Based on the fact that there are signs of healing around the edge of the bone, scientists think that the skull's owner survived trepanation, which was not a common occurrence. Historians believe that trepanation was only performed in desperate circumstances, but ancient doctors thought it could treat head injuries, headaches, and even infestation by evil spirits. We will never know for sure why the recipient of this trepanation underwent the process, but at least it seems he lived to tell the tale. Number 5. Ice treasures from the Iron Age. The mountains of Lapland, Norway, are melting, and in doing so, they are revealing objects that have been covered in snow and ice for centuries. In April 2022, archaeologists exploring the mountains found a perfectly preserved Iron Age sandal in what remains of the Horse Ice Patch. It was found along with an as yet unidentified fragment of another textile, arrow shafts, lead fodder, and ancient horse dung. It is very likely that this part of the ice patch was a mountain pass during the Iron Age. That theory has been all but confirmed by the discovery of several cairns along what would have been the optimal route through the mountains. The shoe is the most personal of the items recovered from the region so far, and was probably made sometime between the 2nd century and the 3rd century. Experts say that the footwear is of the carbotine type, made of a single piece of leather tied through rings positioned on the arch of the foot. The strange thing is that it was recovered at a height of more than 10,000 meters above sea level, in a place that would have been covered in ice even at that time. Who on earth thought shoes like this were suitable for traversing glaciers? Number 6. Forgotten Ancient City. Our next discovery comes from June 2022 and it's a great find. In fact, it's an entire forgotten city. The 3,400-year-old city has recently emerged from the Tigris River, having been submerged during the construction of the Mosul Dam in Iraq in the 1980s. Somehow, the city's existence was ignored or unidentified when it was discovered. Made the reservoir. Archaeologists say the city was built during the height of the ancient Mitanni Empire. It was not just any city, but a place of great importance. We know this because it has several large administrative buildings and a large palace. Some historians think that it could be the ancient and legendary city of Zikiku, which is known to have been one of the most important in the entire empire between 1550 and 1350 BC. The city will only remain accessible for the duration of the current drought, meaning experts on the ground must work quickly. So far, they have mapped all the largest areas of the city and identified a fortified wall with towers, vast storage facilities, and what could be an industrial complex. They have also found 5 ceramic vessels containing more than 100 cuneiform tablets, although translating the text will likely take a long time. Number 7. Iron Age Banqueting Site. Cooking meals was a communal activity in England during the Iron Age. You can see that by the size of these cauldrons, which were found at a former banqueting site in Glenfield Park, Leicestershire, in November 2017. The site was explored by archaeologists ahead of the construction of a large commercial warehouse and returned several exciting results. It seems that during the Iron Age there was a small settlement here, but no one knew it existed until archaeologists came along. The team identified enclosures, post holes, ditches and roundhouses at the northernmost end of the planned development site, plus evidence that the site remained inhabited during the Roman era in the British Isles. The area is particularly rich in ancient metalwork, including brooches, horn caps, dress pins and, of course, these 11 metal cauldrons. It is only the second time that multiple Iron Age cauldrons have been found together in Europe and by far the largest number. The cauldrons were arranged in a circular trench around a building, after which the trench was filled, perhaps signifying the end of ceremonial activities at the site. Number 8. Ancient Greek Helmet. Not all ancient warriors left the battlefield with their helmets still in their possession. Some were left behind, either by accident or burial. Not all of them are historically notable, but this Greek bronze helmet is. This is because it is 2,500 years old and was found in the Russian district of Taman, far from where such an object should be. The only helmet that looks like this that has appeared on the territory of the former Soviet Union before was found during the 19th century near Kiev. This Corinthian-style helmet is like nothing previously discovered in the northern region of the Black Sea area. You will find depictions of helmets like these on numerous Greek vessels and also on the statue of Athena, but finding real examples in the world occurs much less frequently. There is still some debate as to whether they were used for military or ceremonial purposes. The helmets are like a cube and would severely hinder both the vision and range of motion of anyone wearing them. The narrow eye slits would have made it impossible to look left or right, so if in battle, the warriors within them would have to face the enemy head-on. Number 9. Iron Age bark shields. In 2015, archaeologists made a discovery considered unique in European history. In Leicester, United Kingdom, several bark shields dating from 395 to 255 BC, during the Iron Age, were discovered. Although the bark is not considered strong enough to withstand combat, studies on the shields revealed that they had seen plenty of action. Even after being discarded, they stood the test of time buried in a well-used-to-water livestock. Attempts to recreate the shields further surprised scientists. They discovered that they were incredibly durable and repelled arrows and weapon blows. In addition, they were lighter than iron ones and were perfect for combat. Number 10. Dead Sea Scrolls. Almost everyone has heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but how much do you know about them? Did you know, for example, that they were discovered by accident and that someone once tried to sell them in the classified section of a newspaper? The famous scrolls were found by teenage Bedouin goat herders in the ancient city of Qumran in Israel in 1947, hidden inside a cave on the shore of the Dead Sea. Realizing that the leather scrolls could be significant, the shepherds sold them to a local antiques dealer, who contacted experts and discovered that they were more than 2,000 years old. That sparked frantic exploration and the eventual discovery of more than 800 manuscripts. The collection was divided up and sold around the world, including through a 1954 advertisement in the Wall Street Journal. The origins of the texts are mysterious, but they are believed to have been written by a devout Jewish sect known as the Essenes about 2,100 years ago. Within them is what is considered the oldest known manuscript of the Old Testament, including writings that do not appear in the official version of the book. Tantalizingly, one of the scrolls is written in copperplate and appears to detail the location of a huge ancient treasure, one that treasure hunters still seek to this day. Number 11. La Fuente Magna. La Fuente Magna is a large stone vessel resembling a libation bowl, accidentally discovered by a farmer near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia in 1958. La Fuente Magna is beautifully engraved with anthropomorphic characters and zoological motifs that are considered characteristic of the culture of the time. Surprisingly, the artifact shows two types of writing. One is a local language of the ancient Pucara, precursors of the Tiahuanaco civilization, and another is an ancient Proto-Sumerian alphabet dating back 5,000 years. The artifact is sometimes known as the Rosetta Stone of America and is one of the most controversial objects in South America. Until now, scientists are still trying to decipher the text of the Magna Fountain. Number 12. The lead sarcophagus of Notre Dame de Paris. The lead sarcophagus of Notre Dame Cathedral, also known as Our Lady of Paris, was discovered during restoration works after the devastating fire of 2019. Two mysterious sarcophagi were found under the nave of the cathedral and, after months of investigation, details about the people buried in them were revealed. The first sarcophagus is believed to contain the ashes of Antoine de la Porte, a high priest, while the second houses the remains of an unknown man nicknamed Le Cavalier, presumably a horseman. Although these discoveries shed light on the history of individuals from different eras, there is still much to learn about their lives and historical implications. Investigations revealed that Antoine de la Porte led a sedentary life with signs of food and alcohol abuse. His royalty-adorned burial site suggests an aristocratic heritage. On the other hand, the second sarcophagus, which contains Le Cavalier, presents notable differences, indicating that these people lived in different times. The discovery of these sarcophagi has added a new chapter to the history of Notre Dame Cathedral and has generated interest in the life and society of those buried within. Archaeological research continues to unravel more details about these historical figures and their connection to the rich history of the cathedral and the city of Paris. Number 13. Jesus' Death Certificate. The Shroud of Turin is a small piece of linen cloth that appears to show the imprint of Jesus' face, like a negative on a roll of film. Religious scholars believe that the shroud wrapped Christ's body after his death, which is why his face was imprinted on it. The shroud is first mentioned in 1354 and quickly became one of the most legendary religious artifacts in the world. It has been kept within the Royal Chapel of Turin Cathedral in northern Italy since 1578. However, it is quite controversial, as tests in 1988 showed that it came from the Middle Ages, some 1,200 years after the recorded death of Christ. Recently, Barbara Frail, a researcher in the Vatican's secret archives, claims that traces of writing were found on the shroud, making it a kind of death certificate. According to Barbara, the word fragments discovered on the shroud were written in Greek, Hebrew and Latin, saying something like this shroud was placed on Jesus of Nazareth. This information comes directly from someone who works at the Vatican. Number 14. Black Magic Grimoire. The Grimoire of Black Magic is exactly what it sounds like, an ancient book of black magic dating from 1421 to 1521. However, no historian has agreed on when the first edition was published. Expert Owen Davis says that it was in 1702 that the first edition was made available, but other more conventional scholars suggest that it was written in the 19th century as some kind of hoax. All we know is that the Black Magic Grimoire, also known as the Great Grimoire, is vague at best. Introductory. It was probably written by a man named Antonio Benitez Anna de Rubino, and he derived much of his information from the original writings of King Solomon. Many of the black magic spells in the book are variations of the Key of Solomon or the Red Dragon. So what does a black magic book have to do with the Vatican? The original copy is rumored to be stored somewhere in the archives. We don't know if any of this is true, but it's what some sources say, and considering that the Vatican archives house almost all of the world's relevant religious texts, it wouldn't be a big surprise. It makes sense that they would keep secret a book that can supposedly summon Lucifer and give one the ability to make a deal with the devil. Number 15. Acambaro Figures. The figures are an intriguing archaeological find discovered by Valdemar J. Rudd, a German amateur archaeologist, in Acambaro, Guanajuato, Mexico. These figures consist of approximately 33,000 tiny ceramic representations that challenge conventional perceptions of history and archaeology. Rudd claimed that the figures resembled dinosaurs, which has sparked controversy and debates over their authenticity. Some consider the figures to be anachronistic and question the coexistence of humans and dinosaurs. However, skeptics point to the lack of formal archaeological excavations and proper documentation, which has raised doubts about the veracity of the findings. Controversy also centers on Rudd's motivations and tactics, suggesting that the figures could be modern fabrications to support a dramatic narrative. The Acambaro figures raise questions about the relationship between humans and dinosaurs, but the lack of solid scientific support and the absence of formal investigations underscore the need for a more rigorous archaeological approach to evaluate their authenticity.